is facing issues with capital structure, which need to be resolved during 2025. And underlying sort of the core operational issue is that we have recently received a new FDA approval, and we need to generate a revenue trajectory that's consistent with the launch expectations for that.
You're showing up as an investor for the last 30 years in real estate and technology. More recently, cryptocurrencies is just expanding. The key here is how do we expand a lot more? And so I looked at co-ventures or collaborative ventures as a way to do that. Simply because I find that there's a lot of talented people with a lot of resources of time or talent or money or connections that we could connect with in different areas. And so I've segmented different sessions, like tomorrow we have for innovation executives to be able to discuss, and this one in particular for private equity, because I found that a lot of our peers were coming to us to generate more revenue, either internally or externally, either having more clients or growing their business internally, but also looking for investors to be able to boost their business. And usually those are companies that are under maybe 100 million or so. And the key over that, perhaps they diminish the investment that they're looking for, or they become publicly traded, as one of our peers has done that. So I thought, well, for those that are not publicly traded or are under 100 million, that perhaps we could work together. And so to co-venture. And that's to be able to come together and be able to really find out how we could do that. So last year we focused on cybersecurity, and we still are. We've got a cybersecurity academy that we could offer online and be able to spread that. That's a multi-trillion-dollar space that doesn't have any clear solution. And so starting with training made a lot of sense. And then we started to look at being able to offer cybersecurity to certain verticals like hospitals. Small businesses seem to be the biggest targets besides the government. And so that's really in the infancy, expanding more and more. Other peers offer government grants, commercial incentives through consulting A's. Another one of our peers has an entrepreneurs university that offers training online for small, medium, large size companies. We're working also with VenOps that does compliance and risk management for the medical industry. And they've got a community of about 1,000 hospitals that they're launching more, especially with AI, which would be interesting. And we do have some of our other peers that are an AI company. I think we're all AI companies eventually, but theirs are more specifically because they use certain tools to get provide better value and to get better known. We're also focusing with Continuum Foundation with virtual solutions. NFT, blockchain is huge. Cryptocurrencies is expanding much more so. Southeast Asia presence, also from a philanthropic standpoint and nonprofit standpoint, working with Blackbird Global Foundation. They've come from a cybersecurity space into the healthcare space, and they've generated quite a bit of revenues, focusing on governments that are able to buy or provide healthcare kiosks to their communities. Big space in Africa, because the point of entry is a lot easier to participate in developing countries. So other areas, recycling, as well as looking at different areas that we could participate. We have a mastermind session that I'll certainly invite you to participate. We do that on a weekly basis. But that's our focus is developing a community, having events, and having a space that we could do co-ventures. So direction we're at. And I'm wondering if, Dan, you might say more about yourself. Yeah, you mentioned your CTO. I think you mentioned you're involved in private equity, but maybe you could say a little bit more about your focus this year in 2025, and perhaps the opportunity that you see and maybe the challenge that you forecast. But first, what's the big idea that you're focusing on, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm the CTO of Specialty Dental Brand, and that's a DSO. So it's a service organization that supports dental practices essentially. And it's a roll up being managed by, private equity. Um, and so right now we're in the it's a fairly young organization, so we've got about 108 practices that we're digesting and normalizing and making them scalable. Um, so we've got all the challenges of making sure that we can serve the practices first and then do it in a scalable way and then look for pockets for innovation, ways to make it do it better than other DSOs do.
What is the big challenge that you see or facing this coming year in your business going forward?
Yeah, I mean it's normalization. It's trying to find like everybody's got their own technology that they're in, and so finding the best platforms um, and the best solutions you know for the types of businesses that we have, and then getting everybody onto them.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. So what's your opinion of AI, or how does that integrate into your business, Dan?
AI is going to be is it's going to be part of everything that we do. I mean, it's to me, it's the I look at AI as like the natural evolution of algorithms that first find correlation, causation, and other things, but doing it in a way that's next generation on the approach for it, and it's almost like a combination of the search and the um, rationalizing the information together and together with algorithms that help define meaning in the data. So the combination of those two things is pretty
You're
powerful.
doing is materially different from what I do. So I don't know that I have, a lot to offer. Um, I mean, yours is a service business and it sounds like it's IT heavy. Um,
That's right.
I can say that my experience with healthcare delivery challenges right now continues to be sort of chaos in the interoperability between EHRs and various data providers. Um, I'll call it a poverty in the mechanisms for making information um, understandable and accessible at the point of care to the healthcare provider that's actually trying to care for a patient. It's extremely burdensome. Tons of stuff has been written on burnout and all the other problems created for providers because of the inadequacies of the systems at the point of care. So you probably know more about it than I do, but it seems like the obvious stuff.
No, I mean I don't know about more about it, but I do understand what you're saying. I mean, and we have 20 practice management systems, that we're trying to rationalize and decide what the right ones are, and then we've got the interoperability is a challenge because you have also 18 front end systems that are CRMs essentially, and then various different ways of doing the revenue cycle management side of it, and how do you get it so that is it looks like one, so you can start taking advantage of economies of scale, right? Whether it's how you access it or how you process the data or how you negotiate the contracts with the insurance providers or whatever it might be. So
And Dan, those are the issues in operating your business, but I imagine capital structure and sources of capital to enable the conduct of your business is a key issue that probably is somewhat more similar across businesses.
yep.
Um, I don't know to what extent private equity plays a role versus venture capital or debt financing or other kinds of capital tools for you right now. I know that evolves over time, but that's one of the key areas where I had interest and desire to learn more and maybe build some sources of network information to help.
I mean, you're the CEO for a pharmaceutical company, publicly traded. I'm curious, that's going to be impacted in different ways, and I'm not quite sure exactly, but maybe you know best about that. What is the big idea that you might have in your business this coming year, 2025, the opportunity and the challenge. But first, what's your big idea or big direction with your business, Rami?
I mean, my business is facing issues with capital structure, which need to be resolved during 2025. Um, and underlying sort of the core operational issue is that we have recently received a new FDA approval, and we need to generate a revenue trajectory that's consistent with launch expectations for that.
What about with the new administration? I think there was some impact that they're addressing pharmaceuticals. Are you aware of any of that, or is that going to affect your business in any way?
A number of new things happening, and probably more than I know about even. But the big news articles around Medicare or CMS drug price negotiation that really only affects about 10 of the very biggest multi-billion-dollar products, at least today. There are multiple other important changes, of course, including changes to Medicare. I don't know if any of you or family members maybe are in Medicare right now, but there are changes to the way the out-of-pocket system works for Medicare that started in January of this year. And it's really not entirely clear, at least to me, how that will pan out for different organizations.
Let me see. So besides those changes, are there any other challenges that you anticipate that you at least that you're aware of that perhaps that you need to address?
Well, it's not unique to me, but I'm sure you have heard about the ongoing controversy around pharmaceutical benefit management organizations, Express Scripts and CVS Caremark and United Optum. Those are a significant challenge in our business. And the structure is, from our perspective, not friendly to innovators, not friendly to people who pay, employers, not friendly to patients. My view is it hasn't at all met the original promise from the 1990s when these things were being created, but they've become extremely profitable and very large. They can't be avoided if you want to be in the
Actually, I have only one question, not based on what he was discussing about, but very specifically as it relates to a publicly traded company and the security infrastructure that you've had to put in place to do business, with the whole notion of the big providers like IBM and Acme, Equinox, and a few of those folks. Did you create your own hybrid security functionality? And what were some of the tools that you used in order to deal with the ever-changing landscape as we're dealing with the how can I put it, the wild, wild west of insurtech, fintech, and medtech?
Yeah, so I'm probably not as familiar. Yeah, I assume your comments are specific to cybersecurity rather than physical security or
Both.
Well,
Actually, because we're dealing with cybersecurity, yes, that's a big deal, but you're also dealing in these days, your physical security along with your security of your IP, the intellectual property.
Yeah.
And so all of those systems have to function and talk to each other and do various things. And I know that I'm an old IBM partner, and I grew up in the out of the world on the West Coast, Silicon Valley, back in the day. But IBM is a big player in these whole security, information enterprise management systems and management. And a lot of companies, particularly in your gauge of public trading, are working with a number of agencies of that nature. And I was just curious as to who you've worked with or what was your solution to dealing with something that is part of your bottom line, which
Yeah.
is the having to deal with the regulatory requirements that the agencies are putting you through via your computer systems and intellectual property, blah, blah, blah.
And we have many such requirements. I think
Yeah, I know.
we are a small company, and we don't have the resources that the majors would have.
Uh-huh.
I'm a little bit removed from the details, but my general sense is that in our collectively enterprise risk management structure, the cybersecurity components are managed by our head of IT, mostly through Microsoft tools. And we have sort of an
Okay.
integrated suite of Microsoft related tools that are used. And it helps to simplify and reduce the amount of complexity and the number of headcount that we have to carry internally by using tools that are designed to work with one another sort of in that space. We use D365.
Okay.
And I know there are, sort of other tools in that domain.
Yeah.
And it's from my perspective, not optimal, but our chief financial officer feels like it's sort of meeting our current needs.
Yeah.
And at some point, the burden of transition, or the speed bumps associated with changing have to be they're high enough that you have to really have a strong reason to make changes.
Yeah, and I go back to one of the pieces that I'm taking Savvy through right now is the risk assessment for high trust certification. So, I'm running the audits, accordingly. The whole nature of some of what you were referring to makes perfect sense to me. The notion that you're using Microsoft too, Microsoft is a high trust partner,
Yep.
and so it's a safe place to be. But the other piece, and this is probably a discussion I would need to deal with your head of your IT because of the technical aspects. But the nature of putting my information into a cloud scares me very much.
Yeah.
Because now I'm relying on them to do my job, and based on the surface attack available in all of these systems, AWS, Azure, we can go on and on. We're putting ourselves into a larger attack surface than if we controlled it privately, but at the same time, it's not costing us as much, and it's actually much more effective. So how do you marry the two, particularly as we move from today over the next 5 years, as major changes are happening within the infrastructure of communications itself, based on some of the edicts that are coming down from the ITU and the G20 with some of the new ISOs relating to network topologies, communication security, and the big one, AI. We've already now got the rules that we're going to have to adhere to as an ISO in order to even touch AI, even if we're not the ones hosting it, but we're using it, or because of our cloud relationships, we're using systems that other folks have decided to use AI in, but it wasn't my decision to turn it on in my search engine, but it's on. You get what I'm saying? So I'm using it now. And so now I'm also in a position from a business perspective, as these things are running around, in the judicial system, I'm liable for, a lawsuit based on breach of data. And so those are the things that I'm trying to deal with and mitigate as it relates to, and like I said, thank you for giving me an opportunity, Rocky, to ask this question, because it's a major concern of mine these days and over the next little bit of time. I grew up in Silicon Valley back in the 70s and 80s. I actually grew up with a love of science as a very young kid. I built my first computer at the age of 14, one of those old analog computers, and I was very, very much into the sciences. So hippie days too, grew up, as I said, grew up in Silicon Valley. Have worked in a number of capacities, not only as an entrepreneur and starting a number of companies, both domestically and also internationally, but also have a background in certain services. I was consul pro tem for the Republic of Sierra Leone for a minute, and the nature of what I do these days, I function as one of the uh, board members for an incubation company called GBI, Global Business Incubation. I'm very focused in working around the community of veterans these days, very specifically, not just as it relates to reentry and personal situations, but very GBI is a business incubator that was founded by veterans on the campus of the Loyola Marymount University. And one of the advisors that helped found this was Dr. George Kosmeski himself, the founder of Silicon Valley, both in Texas and the one in California where I grew up. Kosmeski and a number of folks understood the notion of reinvestment into the veteran community as it relates to businesses, because to date, based on Department of Labor statistics, the veteran community is about 12% of the population, but we collectively produce 10% of the GDP of this country as a business, as collectively as businesses. So we're a major infrastructure within the U.S. for economic development, economic prosperity. We are the largest group, or there is no group that makes as much money or that brings that kind of income collectively as a group, So I go back to, and it's also based on, the size of the population, the percentage of the population. Such companies, that are veteran-owned, GoDaddy, Amazon, Chick-fil-A, major players. So we take the time to recruit. I work with the SBA very directly, and with a program called the Small Business the Veteran Business Outreach Center. So we're working with veterans while they're still in military active action, getting them ready to become entrepreneurs, and after they leave, and working with the funding sources and the other sources to make that happen. My personal projects right now, we've started our Genesis block in relation to the Hyperledger system that we brought back online. We're bringing back online our Wild Weasel supercomputer. This time we're going to be focusing on machine learning as opposed to the scientific work that we were working on, which was folding molecules and, trying to create, vaccines for COVID and all of that stuff. So the other piece too, outside of that, Savvy is the one. We're done with the enrollment, so now we're in the middle of the rewrite, and I'm doing the security audit. But as it relates to the computer lab and the things I'm doing here at the Nest, Wild Weasel will be back online, and we're going to be rocking and rolling and doing some crazy stuff. And we're working on a deal where right now, while the primary core Wild Weasel is in a 46U rack, I think we're able to now to get it down to a size based on current technologies, down to a size of about 6 inches by 12 inches. It'll be a 6-inch by 12-inch block of multiple boards that we've started manufacturing. The third project, of course, is our continual focus on food, water, and energy. We're moving forward with our secondary emergency management system, which is a combination of anaerobic digestion, growing greenhouses, and steam and water to produce energy and solar. It's a combination of four current technologies that cities use, but we've been able to marry them and create what's called a secondary emergency management system that literally for smaller communities, particularly in the rural areas that I live in, smaller communities, if we lose power, we have a backup that literally can bring power, food, and water. And at the same time, when there is energy coming and when systems are online in a city, and one of the systems that we have in place, it's actually making money for them, such as in Hutchison, the anaerobic digester that they put in there, that actually brings into the city $3 million a year in revenue, in actual revenue, as opposed to defraying costs, if you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
So this additional revenues are what these smaller cities are looking for as we're working with the EDA for economic development in rural America. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you for giving me some time. Hopefully I didn't bore you.
Well, you've got such diverse interests that, in fact, the things that you mentioned about energy reserve, I was thinking of LA with all those things. They need
Yeah.
food, water, and energy, and I don't know how that might fit into that, but that might be a different tangent. But I'm curious, which one generates revenue for you? Is there a focus? And I know you've got Savvy at the back. And Savvy is an AI company that's focused in reducing the cost of healthcare for businesses in a very unique way. Maybe you could just say a little bit more about Savvy, because that seems to be top of mind from your screen that you have. Paul?
Savvy is employee benefits company that manages a package based on the health savings account system. It's called an ICHRA. I don't know if you've heard, but ICHRAs are very widely used in Europe, in the European market now. They basically it's a system that allows for an employer to spend less money and to provide larger benefits. And it also gives the employees the ability to have more control over who they work with, what they get, and how they function it. And it gives them a better. And what we have done is we've just created the InsurTech, portal that marriages, your payment systems with your insurance carriers, with your employers, with your employees, with your advisors, and so they all meet, and where Savvy is the hub where that meets, and it's the technology framework that makes that happen. So that's what we are in Savvy. Currently, right now, we're focused on just one simple piece of management, which was the management of the ICHRA for employers and advisors, insurance advisors. We're looking to move into other areas of management as we grow and go forward. We've just been through our first year of enrollments, and Savvy grew a little bit, so we've got some pretty good income coming in monthly now, and from that we'll be continuing. As I said, we're currently right now in the middle of a rewrite in order to apply what we learned from our first enrollments. Better, gooder, neater, leaner,
Faster.
yeah.
Leaner and meaner.
The nature of the benefits that he produces and provides, the Savvy network would be one of the conduits that you use in order to manage that system. Right. And to manage those services. You see, that's what we're growing into, and that's what this whole new thing, InsurTech, FinTech, and MedTech, those industries that are moving into those middle areas, it's like a middleware area that brings together all of these factions into a place where it's a one-stop shop, basically, from a marketing perspective. One-stop shop, I can get all my stuff done, You know, I can take care of it and I'm good to go. And it manages itself, and it even uses AI to make decisions for me. So I'm good, you know. But that's what's actually happening, and the even though today we might not be related, I'm 3, 5 years from now. Oh yes, it'll definitely be a marriage there. And those of us who are wise enough to see what's coming down the pike will be putting together the necessary partnerships so that we can effectively maintain control as it relates to the, or I don't want to say control, but the ability to move in an ever-changing world because of the partnerships that we've developed internally. As it, you know, the old notion of networking. You know, you get what I'm saying. I'm I I'm I don't I'm losing some words because I'm also saying I got a class I got to teach in about, you know, another half hour. Uh, but the nature of those partnerships are going to be very key and important. But I go back to the marriage. What's happening right now is the feds in the world is trying to figure out all the regulatory requirements, you know, and all of the pipelines, and putting those into legislation on how we will interact with each other, and who will be able to do what, and who will be able to offer what, and how it will be offered, and how it will be stored, you know, all of those things. And so collaborations like what I'm talking about are going to put us in a position where it's almost like we know HIPAA is getting ready to come down the pike. So we're going to be HIPAA certified 5 years before it becomes mandated.
Or organization plays a role in this. I don't even know if it's possible, but I do know that if insurers could be disintermediated between the employers who ultimately pay for most commercial medical care, and providers of innovative products that, you know, are used in care, like what we have developed,
Mhm.
the cost could be substantially lower.
That's what the ICRA actually provides, based on basically it's nothing more than creating a shopping mall. Another, you know, in my world, it's a Sears catalog on steroids. Okay, you know, focused on insurance. And so the nature of what you're talking about is becoming more and more evident. And as ICRA, you see, here's the one piece too. And I might advise for you to do a little research relating to ICRAs and the health savings accounts, and how employers are moving to them, and how it's very widely used in Europe and it's becoming very popular, and how you might be able to marry your system and what you do into that network, because that will give you a phenomenal amount of distribution. ICRAs are very popular these days. You know, look, Savvy is a newcomer. I was reviewing 48 of my competitors that have been around, and they're making bank. And we're talking about managing 10, 20, 30,000, you know, employees. You know, several hundred companies, but a total of 10, 15,000 employee management, you know, in relation to employee benefits, you know, and access to healthcare. So I go back to, it's the marketplace is changing, and and the nature of what's happening is very exciting. Some people are making some money immediately, but in the long term, because of the feds, and, you know, and the G20 and all of the folks that want to get their money, Lloyd's of London and all of those folks, you know, there's things that are happening, even in the, like I go back to, even in the realm of cybersecurity. There were some changes that just took place, you know, with the feds, and how we're going to have to deal with HIPAA. They got HIPAA changes that are coming down the pike just this year that got passed, and they're going to put a workload on a few folks. You still there? Okay.
Yeah, we're still here.
So I go back to having these partnerships, and will help smaller companies, be able to leverage these things a lot better because we can cover each other's back, if you get what I'm saying. Where I'm weak, you're strong, blah, blah, blah. I've got the cybersecurity deal down pat. I mean, we're high trust certified. So being in that network, we're actually able to put a covering over that. The systems are run the audits. I mean, all of that kind of, internal stuff that us IT folks have to do, we can now begin to reduce the amount of time it takes for us to do it, along with the ability to actually make much more profit for the company in the systems that we roll out. So,
Yeah,
that's
Paul, you mentioned partnerships. You mentioned medtech and fintech. What kind of partners are you thinking that you need or would want?
well, we're dealing with Savvy. It's, how can I say this? It's there are the partnerships would be with companies that are providing products to those, to the employees. Our biggest partners, of course, would be insurance agencies that are already running employee benefits programs, to get them to add, the ICRA into their mix, because there's going to be employees that don't want to do an ICRA or an HSA. They want, they want this particular package, but giving them the ability to do that is what we do. But so I go back to partners, that have large employers, because our deals, we make money on every employee that is registered in our system. So, bottom line, nickels and dimes, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, that's insurance companies would be intermediaries. What about the producers like pharmaceuticals or medical producers? Are those potential partners?
Well, yes and no. I go back to, we provide a shopping experience. So in other words, my friend here would have their program as one of the options that a person could add to their package. All right. Now, in that respect, yes, there are a number of companies who that's not really a partnership, that's using our vendor portal, if you get what I'm saying, more so than a partnership. I personally, I can see partnerships the way that you're talking about, but not directly now, because there's certain problems in the law and regulatory area that has to be settled. And this has to do with relationships of people and companies, that are doing various things. And, in other words, I might not be able to have a partnership with a company like his based on federal regulations. And I'm able to go around it based on getting him to hook up with, one of the insurance advisors, and to be part of that deal. So I'd have to, that's a very good question, and I'll have to think about it and ask
Well, good. Well, I want to thank you for that, Paul and Rami, and certainly the opportunity is for us to come together and be able to get to know each other and have a discussion. And my invitation is that you might consider joining us again in a month. We do this for private equities participants on a monthly basis, but it's not limited to that. You can certainly join some of our other events. And before I invite you to close us off, I certainly want to extend the invitation to join our community, peersondemand.com, and connect with each other. If you want to put whatever information you like about yourself, certainly encourage you to connect with each other and be able to either have discussions or do business or refer business, or as I'd like to say, collaborative ventures, CoVentures.
I will say the one thing that I should have probably brought up, in this emergency management deal, this greenhouse from Dr. Nelson, one of the areas that we're looking at moving forward in is the actual production of biomedicals. And I don't know, I don't know my gentleman here, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you guys do and some of the innovations that you have. But as it relates to the development and the getting, not getting access, but taking advantage of the growth of biomedicals. And I'm not talking about CBD either. I'm talking about insulin. I'm talking about the drugs that Crohn's disease are used for. They're all grown. And we have an ability to not only produce, or part of the plan is being able to grow the biomedicals, create the production facilities within, small towns, and then, being able to do that. Another piece too, like I go back to penicillin. Interesting thing about penicillin, or those antibiotics, the majority, if I'm correct, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but basically it's nothing more than water and sugar, as far as the manufacture of the drug, or I should say it's a very simple manufacture. And it's interesting that there is no manufacturing of penicillin in America. It's all overseas. And we could actually bring those kinds of manufacturing operations back, along with taking advantage of going into a highly profitable field of growing our own medicines and being able to conduct in that way. So that's just another piece that I'd like to explore a little bit sometime when we.
That would be right up Rami's expertise with pharmaceuticals. And I don't know much about penicillin, but certainly tomorrow we've got an innovation exchange that you could join in. And you've got a lot of different interests, Paul. Rami, you're welcome to join us tomorrow too. It's a different group, different discussions. We encourage people that have some ideas or innovators that are looking to provide some thoughts and even funding as well. So